If you've been living under a rock and don't know, Damian Lillard is now a Milwaukee Buck. He got traded to the Milwaukee Bucks. Let me just set the table so I can have a good baseline so we know what the trade was, what happened. Let's just go over some basics and then we'll go into a little deeper dive, if you will. So if you don't know, like I said, Damian Lillard is now a Milwaukee Buck. Trade happened at 2:25 this afternoon. Woj and Shams start going crazy, dropping the biggest Woj bomb definitely of the year. I don't remember what the big Woj bomb was last season, but this one was obviously big. So shout out to Shams for putting this together. It's just the first one I saw. Usually I try to get Woj's tweets, but shout out to Shams. So per sources, Portland, Milwaukee, and Phoenix have agreed to a 3-team trade. Bucks get Damian Lillard, Suns get Yusuf Nurkic, Blazers get DeAndre Ayton. We get that at 218. Fun fact, if you didn't know, when Shams first tweeted this, I don't know if you can see, maybe he removed it, but there's a screenshot going around that Shams accidentally tweeted that the Raptors got him at first. I don't know how truthful that screenshot is because I didn't see it, but there's a screenshot going around. So the full trade is the Bucks get Damian Lillard, the Blazers get Drew Holiday, DeAndre Ayton, Tumani Kamara, 2029 first round picks, and some Bucks pick swap. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure what year that Bucks pick swap is. We'll look into that later. Suns get Yusuf Nurkic, Nazir Little, Keon Johnson, and Grayson Allen. So I got a little bit of my thoughts and stuff for each team when it comes to this trade. First off, I want to say shout out to the Bucks because I didn't see, the Dame put in that trade request either late June, early July. I can't remember the exact date, to be honest with you. But basically all summer, we've been hearing Dame trade requests, Dame rumors. At one point, it was like, okay, Dame's going to Miami. It's just a matter of when. That's the thought that was coming up. And then it was like, okay, there's some other teams interested. The Raptors were interested. Sixers fans were interested. I don't know if the Sixers were actually a team looking to trade for Dame, but it was something that I'll tell you. Sixers fans on Twitter, we wanted Dame. There were a lot of teams, not a lot, but a handful of teams that were in the Damian Lillard sweepstakes. I read a lot of NBA articles. I spend a lot of time on Twitter. I watch a lot of NBA videos. And in not a single report do I remember seeing the Milwaukee Bucks as an interested team. When I tell you real G's moving silence like lasagna, Wayne knew what he was saying when he said that. Shout out to the Bucks for making this happen. Shout out to the Bucks for making this happen. Listen, so let's talk about the Bucks. I guess we'll talk about the Bucks side of things. I got some notes for all three teams. Yes, I have some notes from Miami as well. But I want to talk about what this means for the Bucks, what this looks like for the Bucks. A couple weeks ago, we know Giannis was on a couple of different podcasts. He said this in like three different platforms of, I want to win. Whether or not that's what Milwaukee will see. Well, I'm not signing this extensions unless I'm sure that we're moving in a direction that's championships, that's winning. And what happened? He said, he put some pressure on them and they went out and got Damian Lillard. On paper, I love the trade, but I won't say I'm worried about it. I'm curious to see how it fits. I'll say that. I'm curious to see what the fit is. Before I get into all the great things about it, we'll get into the great things first. I'll be nice. On paper, it makes a lot of sense. This is somebody to put on my, I put a story up on TikTok and one of the people that commented was like, this is probably as close as we're going to get to Steph Curry and LeBron James playing together. And as crazy as that might sound, it's kind of facts. Now, Dame and LeBron aren't the same and Dame and Giannis aren't exactly the same as Steph and Dame aren't exactly the same, but the play styles are very similar. Can you imagine what the pick and rolls are going to look like between Damian Lillard and Giannis? It'll be absolutely insane. When Giannis has the ball, bully him. Now you can't. Not every team this, but some teams would help off of Drew. Like Drew would be the guy that they would leave open sometimes, depending on who's on the floor, but the person that was on the floor. Now you can't leave Damian Lillard open. Like you cannot help off of Dame and you can't help off of Giannis. I'm very, very curious to see what defenses do to try to stop them because that pick and roll is going to be unstoppable. The thing I'm curious to see how it works out and their new head coach, and we'll talk about him in a second, but their new head coach has to figure some things out. Because Giannis was outside of two outliers that ain't really played no games. Giannis was number one last year during the regular season in usage rate, and Dame was number 5. So these are two guys that are used to having the ball in their hands a lot. They both scored over 30 last year on some really good efficiency. So they're used to having the ball. They're used to putting up shots. They're used to scoring a lot. They're used to the offense running through them. Dame is a guy who, in my opinion, I think a lot of people would say is still in his prime. Depending on who you talk to, he's a top 3, top 2 point guard in the NBA. So adding at the very worst, a top 3 point guard to the Milwaukee Bucks, it's still mind-blowing to me. It still blows my mind how they made this happen, especially, yes, Sleazy, what you're saying right here, especially doing it without giving up Chris Middleton. So now that we, kind of talked about the offense a little bit, one of the things that a lot of people are worried about, and I've already seen some people saying this is a downgrade, like the Bucks got worse by losing Drew Holiday's defense, which, while yes, Drew Holiday, probably the best guard defender in the league, best two-way guard defender in the league. there's no downside to adding Damian Lillard to your team. I don't care unless you traded away Steph Curry for him. There's no downside of adding. Like, there's no downgrade to adding Damian Lillard to your team. Are they going to miss Drew Holiday's defense? For sure, they are. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But something to keep in mind when you're talking about the Milwaukee Bucks is they're still really good. They're still going to be good defensively. Drew Holiday's not there necessarily as their point of attack guy, but Giannis was third in terms of defensive player of the year voting this year. He ended up in third. We know Giannis is an elite defender. They still have Brook Lopez, who, while he is, yes, getting older, and people are wondering when he's going to take that step to slow down and when he's going to not look like himself anymore. Brook Lopez had, to me, his best season as a Milwaukee Buck, offensively and defensively. He had his best season as a Buck. He was, if he wasn't the league leader, he was like top 3. I looked at the stat a couple weeks ago. I can't exactly remember. But he was at the top of the league in terms of shots defended at the paint and shots defended at a perimeter. Don't ask me how he was in the tops for both, but he was. Defensively, Brook has been an amazing anchor for this Milwaukee Bucks team. And yes, VR, to your point of you're acting like Giannis can't defend a perimeter player at the highest ability. Exactly. Giannis, the Bucks, what they pulled off here is absolutely phenomenal. Not being able to keep Chris Middleton, I think, is the biggest part of all of this. One of the reasons I didn't think Milwaukee would have been in the sweepstakes for making a big splash trade, because I thought their trade pieces, I mean, yes, Drew, but if anything would have been traded, I thought it would have been Chris Middleton. And being able to keep Giannis, being able to keep Middleton, you lose Grayson Allen, who, quiet as kept, I think was a good role player for them, solid defender, a good 3-point shooter. What is his name? That's no longer on the team anymore. Oh, light skin, bald head. Why is his name slipping my mind? Wing. Nope. It's there and it's gone. Point being, the Bucks, to me, this makes them favorites to come out the East. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. The Milwaukee Bucks are favorites to now come out the East. Looking past the Bucks side of things, yes. Does this make the Bucks contenders? I mean, the Bucks were already contenders. Does this make the Bucks the favorite to come out the East? Absolutely, in my mind. They're still elite teams in the Eastern Conference. You got the Celtics, I think, are still an elite team up there. Miami, I'm still going to have in the conversation because although they ain't really do much, bringing back Tyler Hero, just on the strength of bringing back Tyler Hero and him being healthy for the regular season, we know what they can do in the playoffs. We'll see what happens, but I think I gotta at least show some love to Miami, and we'll talk about Miami in a second. Miami's still in that contention. Those 3 teams, or I say the teams that are still in the contention, y'all know I'm going to mention my Sixers just because I'm a Sixers fan. You know what I mean? We're going to make the second round interesting at the very least. But hands down, to me, the Bucks, they're the favorites to come out the East now. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Let's talk about the Trailblazer side of this. So I'm seeing a lot of mixed emotions from Blazers fans. I was on Twitter. I wanted to see what people were thinking, how they felt about this. So they felt that they didn't get enough, that they felt they got too much. I don't think you can feel you got too much, but we're Blazers fans and we're fans around the NBA, what was the thought process for the Blazers? So I spent a couple minutes, joined a couple of what do they call spaces on Twitter. I was in a couple of live streams on TikTok on my way home from work, and I'm getting a lot of mixed reactions from Blazers fans. Some people are happy with Drew and see the vision of what's possible with the Drew. But let's talk about what the Blazers got back from this. So the Blazers got Drew Holiday, DeAndre Ayton, this Kamara guy who, like I said, I ain't gonna lie, I don't know this man. I don't know this. Sorry to that man. 2029 first round pick from the Bucks and the Bucks pick swap. That's what the Blazers received. Not a lot. Some people were like, yo, why did they get Drew Holiday? Like, what is the point of getting Drew Holiday as opposed to what that Tyler Hero, potentially that Kyle Lowry, and likely 2 picks from the Miami Heat deal was looking like? What made the Blazers pick this deal over the Miami deal? On paper, when you think about it, Drew Holiday doesn't fit the Blazers timeline. They have the guards that they want. They have Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe. They have their young guard core that they want to go in the future with, especially Scoot. Drew ain't staying there. Drew's getting flipped ASAP to a contending team for potentially more draft capital and or different young pieces. Probably not guards, maybe young wing, young big, whatever. Well, not necessarily young big. You got DeAndre Ayton now if you decide to keep him. But Drew Holiday can easily be flipped for more draft cap. Drew Holiday's only 33 years old. Drew Holiday just, once again, very similar to Brook Lopez, just came off the best season of his career as a Buck. He was an all-star this past year, if I'm not mistaken. And I think for me at least, and I'll be honest, some of this was news to me today. Some of the discourse around the Drew Holiday situation was, why get Drew Holiday? He's not on your timeline. And apparently, back in May, Drew Holiday said he wanted to retire with the Bucks. So this is, let me see, follow this link. I didn't realize this was an Instagram link. My boy sent me this on Instagram today. May 2nd, 2023. It's supposed to be a video right here. If this, here we go. Per the Point Forward podcast, Drew Holiday plans to retire when his contract is up in 2 years. This is April 29th, 2023. This is what Drew had to say about it.
When you're done. It's funny because my wife had this conversation, I think it was 2 days ago. She was like, are you serious after this contract? Like, are you serious about retiring? I'm like, yes, like I feel very strongly about it.
So this happens in May. Drew says, how do you feel? I'll be honest. I didn't go back, watch the full episode. I think personally there's some context missing here from this clip, but this is the clip that had been going back around again since he got traded. And then, but yesterday, now with that clip in mind, him saying at the end of this contract, he's, thinking about retirement, he might be done. If you don't know, Drew Holiday has a player option that ends next season. Player option that ends in player option for 2025. So he could opt out in 2024 and be done with his current contract. Like he could be done at the end of this season. I don't think that'll happen, but it's a possibility. I don't know. Yay, nay. Published yesterday by Kurt Heinlein. Published September 26, 2023, NBC Sports. Drew Holiday hopes to sign an extension and retire a Milwaukee Buck. Introduction about like Drew Holiday's season, all-star this year, averaged 20 this season, 7 assists, 5 boards, and made an all-defensive team. He had an excellent season. One of the quotes that were in this article from Jim of the Milwaukee Journal, this is Drew saying, would love to sign an extension, he said. Before I even won here, I think I said I'm a Buck for life, and I mean that like deep in my heart. I don't want to play for any other team. I think we have a chance to continue to do great things as the Bucks team. And organization. So I want to be in Milwaukee. This quote came out yesterday. Now, I don't know exactly when he said this to this guy from the Milwaukee Journal. Let me pull this up right here. Oh, no, 9/26. No. Okay. All right. The Milwaukee Journal want me to drive. We're not doing that. But my point being is Drew was like, yo, I'm happy to be here. I want to be here. I can see myself retiring with this team. And the very next day after this quote comes out and is released to the public, he's a Blazer. The NBA happened so fast. It's one of the things we would say the NBA is a business, teams is a business. I'm sure it wasn't a easy decision for the Milwaukee Bucks leadership and front office and stuff like that. But if you have the opportunity to trade for Damian Lillard, like you don't say no to that. You just don't. You make that move. Two things from this, from the Drew situation. One, the first question is, okay, so if the if the Blazers don't keep him, where can he go? Like, where should he go? Who should trade for him? Who has the opportunity to trade for him? Who has pieces to trade for him? Reports came out immediately that the Sixers are interested. Maybe a 3-team deal situation, because get the Clippers involved. Somehow we put together some assets. Assets go to the Blazers. Sixers get Drew. Clippers get James. We'll see if that happens. I've seen some already saying, VR saying it in here. All right, I was gonna click your comment, VR, but you wildin', so I ain't gonna click it. But VR saying it in the chat, the idea of the Raptors being interested in him and Drew, considering they got Dennis Schroeder. I think Dennis Schroeder's solid, but you know what I mean? It wouldn't be crazy to think that Drew Holiday would be an upgrade over Dennis Schroeder. I've also heard situations where it's like the Miami Heat. You didn't get Dame, try to get Drew. I guess mainly those 3-4 teams is the main teams I've heard over the last like hour or so of teams that could be interested in getting Drew. Is the Lakers, I've heard the Sixers, I've heard the Raptors, and I've heard the Heat. Those 4 teams are the teams so far, at least, that I've heard that are interested in. And I'm sure I got to look and see. I don't know off the top of my head the rules of how fast a player can be traded if received from a trade. Because it's just a trade, I want to say it's fairly quickly. It's not like a free agency signing. When a free agency signing, they got to wait a little bit longer. Like, I know all the free agents who were signed this summer can't get traded to December 15th. But if you're traded, I'm pretty sure you can get reshipped out fairly quickly. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Drew Holiday get moved sometime this week. Like, I really wouldn't be surprised if it happens sometime this week, because a lot of teams, especially a piece as big as Drew Holiday, like if you get that piece, that's all, for the most part, automatically your starting point guard, and you want that person to be really involved in training camp and your schemes, preseason, all that in the third. So considering media day for some of these teams starts like this week, preseason games start next week, they want Drew. You're going to want Drew. If you're going to go after Drew, you're going to want him on your team as soon as possible so he can get acclimated to, your team, your players, your schemes, all that. On the flip side of this, since we're talking about Drew Holiday and talking about the Blazers picking the Drew Holiday portion of this and going with the Buck side of things, as opposed to going with the Miami Heat. We'll talk about the Suns later. I don't think so. Rage in the Discord was telling me that, understandably, he's a Miami Heat fan, that this was a slight trade or a spite trade. This was a spiteful trade that the Portland Trailblazers did not want to give Damian Lillard what he wanted. He made it clear that he wanted to go to Miami, and they were like, some Miami fans, understandably, are like, yo, y'all just did this trade to spite Dame and spite us. I think there may be some truth to that. Like, if I'm being completely honest, I can see let me rephrase. I don't think there's truth to that. Like, I don't think that's what happened here. However, I can't be mad at you if you believe that that's the case, because I can see your logic. But hear me out. To my understanding and from what I've seen, the Miami Heat trade was just some variation, was a mix of Tyler Hero, potentially Kyle Lowry, 2 draft picks, and maybe even throw in like a young player. There was talks of like Jovic being in there. It was also talks that Miami didn't want to include Jovic, but some form of Tyler Hero, potentially Kyle Lowry, and 2 picks at the bare minimum is what was looked at as the Miami Heat trade package. And while, yes, I'm not saying that's not a bad trade package, I'm not saying that's better or worse than basically getting Drew Holiday and the Bucks pick and a pick swap. What I am saying is I can see why the Trailblazers would be more interested in getting Drew Holiday than they would be interested in getting Tyler Hero. While yes, Tyler Hero is younger, Tyler Hero has more years on his contract. I think Tyler Hero is a better future play. The Blazers weren't looking for a future play. The Blazers were looking for assets. We already said Drew will get moved easily. Championship teams, a team that's looking to contend, a team that's looking to make a deep playoff run, will be interested in what Drew Holiday can bring. In my mind, they'll be interested in what Drew Holiday can bring faster and more eager than they will be looking for what Tyler Hero can bring. And what I mean by that is, while yes, Tyler Hero, we know he's a bucket, 28 game, he is a bucket. I think the interest there is, and it's not the exact same, because yes, Tyler Hero can score in a whole lot of different areas. He can score at the 3-point line, mid-range, he can create his own shot, do a lot with the ball. I just think it's easier if you're a championship team or a team that's trying to contend for a championship. It feels like it'd be easier to insert Drew Holiday into your scheme than it would be to insert Tyler Hero. Only because Tyler Hero lacks a lot on the defensive side of the ball, and Tyler Hero, to an extent, part of his game and part of his scoring is him with the ball in his hand. Drew don't necessarily need to have the ball in his hand if you already have a primary ball handler, whether that be a 2 or a 3, depending on what your team's chemistry is, whether your big man's your main go-to guy. I just think Drew would have been an easier flip for the Blazers than Tyler Hero would. And on top of that, Tyler Hero's under contract for let me look. We already said Drew Holiday's has a player option in 2025. So if your team getting Drew Holiday, you're like, okay, we only got him for like a year or 2. We're trying to strike while the iron's hot. Like, if it don't work, it don't work. But this is us trying to make a move to strike while the iron's hot. Hero's locked into 2027. So you're like, okay, if it don't work for whatever reason, we're either stuck with him for longer, and now we have to figure out how to move on from him because we have him for the next couple of years. So while, yes, Tyler Hero is younger, he could potentially even get better. Like, I think he will get better as he continues to develop in his career. But if you're the Blazers and you're thinking we need somebody who we can flip quickly, Drew just can be flipped faster. Drew can be flipped fast. This is not a bad point either. The Heat didn't have enough to trade for Dame once Gabe and Max Strus left. That's possible too. But in that same breath, I don't know if the Blazers would have been interested in Gabe or Strus, because at least at the time, based on what they did with this trade, the vibe I'm getting from this and what they seem to be projecting is they were looking for stuff they can flip back quickly. And Drew Holiday fits that bill. Now, the other piece that the Blazers got is DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton is, I want to say he's 25. I could be wrong. I want to say he's 25. DeAndre Ayton age. Yes, DeAndre Ayton's 25 years old. He's on a max contract. If it's not considered a max, it's like right underneath a max. DeAndre Ayton got it bad. Is he technically on the timeline of some of the younger guards? He's a little older than some of their guards. I think the discourse around DeAndre Ayton right now is, I'll say it, overrated. I think a lot of people think DeAndre Ayton's overrated right now. He didn't have the best last year and a half with the Suns. Last season wasn't necessarily terrible. Am I thinking of last season? Yeah, last season wasn't necessarily terrible, but the season before that, when Monty was like, yo, we're not even playing you for time. It just, was that this year, or am I tripping? No. Was that this past playoffs, or was that the playoffs before, where DeAndre Ayton got sat and him and Monty wasn't talking? He wanted a trade, but then they matched it last summer. Yes. Okay. All over the place. Where was I going? DeAndre Ayton had a reputation of the last year and a half as a player who's overrated. You can even say overpaid. Didn't necessarily. He didn't necessarily, I'll say, live up to a lot of people's expectations of him. DeAndre Ayton still was 18-10 this year. He still at times can prove to be I think he has a potential to be a top 10 center in the league. I think he has the potential to be a really good center. I think the point of where the Suns and DeAndre Ayton got to was just, it wasn't going to work. What the Suns wanted him to do, and I think what he wants to do with his game, were two different visions. It's crazy, the quote that came out a couple of weeks ago, or honestly, just like last week, that the Suns were looking for a more defensive-minded center, making less money. And one of the names, ironically, that popped up was Yusuf Nurkic's name. Personally, I don't think Yusuf Nurkic is a defender, if you will. In years past, he's been a solid rebounder and stuff like that, and been able to just be a solid body in the paint. Yusuf Nurkic hasn't been the same player that he's been since his foot ankle injury over the last couple of seasons. But I was real high on Yusuf Nurkic right before his injury, so I'm excited, at the very least, to see what he looks like with the Phoenix. Let me get my thoughts more concise on Ayton. Basically, for the Aytons, all I want to say is this: I truly think he needed a new opportunity in a new team. I think although Monty Williams isn't there anymore, I just think the Phoenix Suns as an organization, what they wanted Ayton to do and what they wanted him to be able to do and what they wanted him for was a guy who's going to roll hard to the basket, defend well-ish, rebound the ball, finish in traffic when he does get the ball. And I think Ayton wants to do a little bit more with his game. He wants to shoot those mid-range jumpers. He wants to get the ball in the post every, couple of possessions. I don't know if that's the direction that the Portland Trailblazers are going to go in. I'm very curious to see how Chauncey Billups uses him, because I think it could work. Like, I think he could be a good piece there. I think Sleazy joked about it in the chat. Him going to Portland isn't a death sentence in my mind. It isn't like he's just going to go there. We're never going to hear from him again and go off into obscurity. I think he can have a solid career with Portland. He's still got years left on that new contract he signed. He's playing with some really talented young guards and Scoot, Shaedon Sharpe, and Anthony Simons. On paper, if I'm the Suns, I'm like, is Yusuf Nurkic an upgrade from DeAndre Ayton? Definitely not. Like, not at all. Nowhere near close, if we're being honest. But I just think it came to the point where they wanted to go in a different direction. Like, it just wasn't going to work out. He didn't want to be there. I truly don't think he wanted to be there. I don't think they really wanted him there anymore. And I think it's for the best that they just go their separate ways. Now, if you're the Suns or you're a Suns fan, the idea of Yusuf Nurkic backing up our defensive line that already is shaky on the perimeter, the Suns are going to be bad defense. I don't think they have good defensive personnel. I'm going to keep it a bit. Now, granted, Yusuf Nurkic can rebound solidly. Not amazingly, but solidly. He's solid on offense as well. Devin Booker has shown more energy on the defensive side of the ball than he has throughout most of his career. Like, the last 2 seasons have been good effort from him on the defensive side of the ball. He ain't locking nobody up, but it's been good effort. Bradley Beal going into the season, he had a lot of interviews, a lot of press conferences. The sentiment is, he said he wants to get back to being a good defender. We'll see if Bradley Beal does that. I don't truthfully remember him being a good defender, but I like the mindset going into this from Brad that he wants to play defense. We know Kevin Durant at times can be I don't want to say a rim protector, but he can be a guy. He has length, he has athleticism. He can defend the rim at times. I don't think you want him to be your primary rim protector, but he can do it. So my point is, they have guys who aren't terrible on defense, but they don't necessarily have this guy is our stopper, or okay, we have a couple of really good defensive pieces. They have guys who I think are going to put out energy and effort on the defensive end of the ball. I don't have a lot of faith in Nurkic. I'm not going to hold you. I don't have a lot of faith in Nurkic's defensive ability. But the one thing I do like is that they got Frank Vogel as their new head coach. And Frank Vogel's known to be a really good defensive-minded coach. He had that Lakers team playing amazing defense when the year they won the championship in 2020. Now, while that personnel was completely different, and yes, very, very good defensive personnel, I think he can implement some similar schemes, some similar concepts. And if you have guys who are willing to at least put energy on the defensive end of the ball, a coach who knows how to scheme well defensively. Right now, I'm telling you, I don't think the Suns will be great defensively, but I think they'll be better than a lot of people expect them to be. I'll say that. They might be an above average defensive team, simply based off of the guys willing to work and Frank Vogel's going to coach them into some good schemes. Abstract guy, what's good? Thanks for pulling up the stream. Bucks better win the chip. That's a good point. I think a lot of people are going to initially, automatically have the Bucks as title contenders, rightfully so. Expectations to win a championship, rightfully so. If they don't win, I think it'll depend on how they don't win, why they don't win, and all that. This, that, and the third, of whether or not the season was a success or failure. And if you ask Giannis, there's no such thing as a failure. But the silver lining is, and I think I wrote their years down. The silver lining is they're there for a while. Dame has a player option until for 2027, so he's under contract. Like he just signed that extension, so he's under contract for a couple more years. And Giannis has a player option for 2026. And yes, he said he wasn't necessarily looking to sign the extension unless he knew we were moving forward with a team that's trying to win a championship. This is a move that's like, we're trying to win a championship, so I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe not this summer because you know, he might like, let's see how it works out. I don't want to be surprised if next summer, depending what it looks like, he signs some sort of extension to go forward, or at the very least opts into that player option for 2020. And I guess the last thought I have on this Dame situation, let me just make sure I'm re-looking at my notes. I had like a page and a half of notes. I just want to make sure I went over all of it. Last thing about the Blazers in terms of why they might have took the Dame deal, the Drew Holiday Bucks deal over the Miami Heat deal. It's a stretch, right? But a lot of people are saying, yo, the Heat would have given up 2 draft picks. The Bucks only gave up 1 in a swap, while you could have got 2 from the Heat. Well, the Bucks pick is in 2029, and we just said Dame player option 2027, Giannis player option 2026. So truthfully, who knows what that 2029 Bucks team could look like? Like if Giannis isn't there, this team ain't gonna be good. I hate to say it like that, but if Giannis ain't there, this team ain't gonna be good. Mainly because the Bucks aren't a free agent destination. The Bucks weren't necessarily a great team before Giannis got there. They had some playoff years, don't get me wrong. Like they weren't horrible. For some context, they had 8 out of the last 20 seasons, they had 8 years where they didn't make the playoffs. So they had 8 years where their pick would have been a lottery pick, is my point here. As in comparison, for the Miami Heat, over the last 20 years, they had 5 years where they didn't make the playoffs. So they had 5 seasons where their pick would have been a lottery pick. But the difference is, in my opinion, the Miami Heat over that last 20 years have been a team that, regardless of roster, we've seen multiple different rosters. Like go back to, we're talking 2003, 2004 season, like D-Wade's rookie season, to now. We've seen multiple different rosters. We've seen multiple different players there. And throughout that whole time, the Heat have been a good team. They have been, at the very least, a playoff contention team throughout that entire time span. And even if, say, you know, you can say, oh, well, Jimmy's getting older. Who knows what Bam's future is going to look like? Like, they might move on Tyler Hero since he was already in these trade rumors for Dame. Maybe he feels some type of way. Yeah, you can say all of that. But at the end of the day, still, even if all the players on both rosters for some reason aren't there in 2029, the thing that Miami has on its side versus the Bucks is it's Miami. Miami is a free agent destination. Miami's will always be a free agent destination. Florida doesn't have state tax. Miami's a beautiful place to live. Who doesn't love Miami if you're a millionaire basketball player? So Miami will always be a free agent destination. So they always can potentially be a team that's at the very least contention for playoffs. So their picks might not be as valuable, even if it's super far out in the future. Their picks simply will never be as valuable as a team like Milwaukee, who's small market, not a free agent destination unless Giannis is there. And if Giannis ain't there, other big names ain't like, you know what, I want to sign with Milwaukee. Like, no, you're going to sign with Miami before you sign with Milwaukee. I'm not mad at the Blazers for picking the Bucks trade over the Miami trade. Not mad. Where's my water? But yeah, I just want to get my full thoughts up there about the trade. I think that I was not expecting this trade at all. Like, this trade shocked and messed up. It was not the trade that I was expecting to see today. I, like most people, was waiting for Dame to just go to Miami. I'll be honest, I'm happy he didn't, because I just like different things. No hate to Miami teams, no hate to Miami fans. Like, because it just felt inevitable at the time and it didn't happen. After a while, I was like, yo, I'm tired of hearing these rumors of why it is or isn't happening at this point. And I'll be honest, I'm happy it ain't happened, because I'm just happy to see something different. Not because I hate y'all. I'm just happy to see something different, because I wasn't expecting it. And because I wasn't expecting it, I feel like it hit a little harder. You know what I mean? It hit a little harder because you wasn't expecting it. So I'm happy it happened. 2 things on my mind since we're still here while we're on the Miami thing. I don't know how this is going to get edited, because I was about to end it and now I got 2 more thoughts. There's this thought process, these 2 tweets that I saw this week, well, today, that the Miami Heat had this arrogance about them and that's why they didn't get Dame. This idea that we're the Heat, we're going to get him. He said he wants to be here. No one else can beat our offer. We're going to get him. Like, we're chilling to an extent. So this is the first one I saw. This was 2 days ago. This was Monday. The Miami Heat believe they could win the East with their current roster and will not act desperate for Damian Lillard. This is per Ethan Solnick, who is CEO of 5 Reasons Sports, host of Best Miami Podcast, 5 on the Floor, former columnist, author. All right, so he sounds like a Miami beat writer is the vibe I'm getting. Maybe more than a beat writer, but he sounds like a guy who's tapped in with Miami. So this was the thought on Monday. It was given this, I didn't mean to say it was given, but it was this idea that Miami feels like, yo, we have the East on lock. We just were in the finals. We were in the finals 2 or 3 years ago in 2020. We were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. If that shot by Jimmy Butler goes in at the buzzer in Game 7, like, we're in the finals again. We feel confident, even if we don't get Dame Like, we're not desperate to get Dame. That was the vibe that we were getting. And then a couple of days later, oh no. And then this idea pops up. This, shout out to Evan Sidri. This week doing numbers. It was doing some numbers when I seen it. In consecutive seasons, 4 superstars had the Heat on their short list of preferred destinations. Donovan Mitchell, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Damian Lillard. For Miami to somehow not land any of them is a failure of epic proportions. It's time to rightly criticize Pat Riley and company. And I tweeted afterwards, I quote tweeted this one, says, if they don't get Dame, it'll be looked at as a bad offseason. But we said they had a bad offseason last summer. They went to the final. 2 things can be true. Without Dame, the Heat had a bad offseason. Without Dame, the Heat can still be really good. I think if you're the Miami Heat, if you're a Miami Heat fan, your only silver lining of this is we're still going to be good. We would have been favorites if we got Damian Lillard. I ain't gonna hold you. You definitely would have been favorites if you got Damian Lillard. But the Miami Heat are still going to be good. Now, are they going to be Damian Lillard and Giannis good? But they're still going to be good. They're still going to be, in my mind, in contention. That's why I said at the top of this. To me, the Heat are still in contention to leave the Eastern Conference. I got to go based off on their history, based off on the fact that Jimmy Butler elevates his game so much in the playoffs. Like, they're just a team that works hard and gets it done in the playoffs. And yes, super kicks, they might get Drew. Shoot, even Buddy Hield campaign. Like, there's still other moves to be made. The offseason ain't over. I do think there was a bit of, just there where they weren't desperate. And it ain't necessarily an arrogance thing to me. It ain't necessarily, we the Heat, we don't need Dame. It wasn't that. It's just they didn't want to act desperate. They felt like they weren't desperate, which is fine. Somebody else just beat you to Dame. Somebody else just beat you. All right, y'all. We're going to get up out of here. This was good. Look for the small forwards video probably to drop. If I record it Thursday, it can drop Friday. Yeah. Look forward to drop Friday. Friday morning, small forwards.